I used to think security cameras were just for peace of mind. Silent, blinking guardians that watched over empty rooms and dark hallways while we slept. But after what I've seen, I can't look at them the same way. Sometimes, the things they capture are far worse than anything you could ever imagine. Picture this. It's 3 in the morning, your house is silent, and you re-reviewing last night's footage just to reassure yourself that everything's normal. But then, in the corner of the frame, you see it. A pale face, staring straight into the lens, eyes wide and unblinking, as if it's been watching you the whole time. It's when you realize the real nightmare isn't what you can see, but what's been watching you all along. These are 3 true stories that will make you think twice before ever checking your security cameras again. I never thought of myself as a paranoid person. I live alone in a small 1-bedroom apartment on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but it's always felt safe, or at least it did, until the noises started. At first I brushed them off as the building's settling, or maybe a neighbor coming home late. But then, one night, I woke up to the sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, right outside my bedroom door. I held my breath, heart pounding, listening as the steps faded away. The next morning, I convinced myself it was just a dream. But the feeling of being watched lingered, heavy and cold. A week later, I found my kitchen window cracked open. I was sure I'd locked it. That was the moment I decided to buy a small, motion-activated camera. I set it up in the living room, pointing toward the hallway that led to my bedroom and the front door. I told myself it was just for peace of mind, that I'd laugh at myself in a few days when nothing happened. The first night, I barely slept. Every creak and groan of the apartment made me flinch. In the morning, I checked the footage, half expecting to see nothing but darkness. And that's exactly what I found. Hours of empty, silent rooms. I felt a little silly, but also relieved. Maybe I really was just being paranoid. But the noises didn't stop. Some nights I'd hear faint whispers, like someone murmuring just out of earshot. Other times, it was the unmistakable sound of footsteps, slow and heavy, moving from the kitchen to the living room. I started locking my bedroom door at night, clutching my phone under the covers like a lifeline. On the 3rd night, I woke up at 3:07 a.m. My phone buzzed. A notification from the camera app. Motion detected. Living room. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the play button. Every instinct screaming at me not to look. But curiosity won out. I pressed play. At first, the footage was normal. The living room was dark, lit only by the faint glow from the streetlights outside. Then movement. A shadow flickered across the far wall. I leaned in, squinting, trying to make sense of it. The shadow grew larger, taking shape. It was a person. Tall, thin, moving with an unnatural slowness. They stepped into the frame, their face hidden in the darkness, but their eyes, God, their eyes caught the light. Reflecting it back like an animal's, they stood there, perfectly still, staring straight at the camera. I could see their chest rising and falling, hear the faintest sound of their breathing through the microphone. For a full minute, they didn't move. Then, as if sensing they were being watched, they tilted their head, almost curious. I felt a chill run down my spine. Suddenly, the figure stepped closer, so close their face filled the frame. Their skin was pale, almost gray, and their mouth was twisted into a crooked smile. They raised a hand and pressed it against the lens, smearing something dark and wet across the glass. The screen went black. I sat there, frozen, my heart hammering in my chest. I replayed the footage over and over, trying to convince myself it was some kind of glitch, a trick of the light. But the handprint was still there on the camera when I checked it in the morning. Sticky, reddish-brown, impossible to ignore. I called the police, showed them the footage, but by the time they arrived, the handprint had faded, almost as if it had never been there at all. They searched the apartment, checked the locks, but found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no footprints, nothing missing. They told me it was probably a prank, maybe a neighbor messing with me, but I knew better. That night, I moved the camera to my bedroom, pointing it at the door. I barely slept, every muscle tense, waiting for the next notification. But nothing happened. Days passed, then weeks. The noises stopped. The sense of being watched faded, replaced by a different kind of fear, the fear of not knowing. Sometimes late at night I still check the footage, half expecting to see that face staring back at me. I never do. But every so often, I find the camera has been moved just slightly, as if someone or something wants me to know they're still there, watching, waiting. And I can't help but wonder, what else have I missed in the hours I was too afraid to look? It's one thing to feel unsafe in your own home, to wonder what might be lurking just beyond the edge of your vision. But what if the real danger isn't hiding in your bedroom or creeping down your hallway? Sometimes the most chilling things are caught on camera in places you'd never expect, places that are supposed to be safe, even in the middle of the night. I've always liked working the night shift. There's a certain peace to it, just me, the hum of the fluorescent lights, and the quiet rhythm of stocking shelves at the little convenience store on Main. Most nights, it's just a handful of regulars and the occasional insomniac grabbing snacks. But lately something's felt off. It started small. A display knocked over, a door left ajar, a faint whiff of cigarette smoke in the back room when I know I'm the only one here. I chalked it up to being tired, maybe a little careless, but the feeling wouldn't go away. One night, I was counting the register when I heard a soft thud from the storage room. I froze, listening. The store was empty, no cars in the lot, no footsteps on the tile. I called out, "Hello? Anyone back there?" Silence. I grabbed the flashlight we keep under the counter and crept toward the back, my heart pounding. The storage room was empty, just rows of boxes and the old security monitor blinking in the corner. I shook my head, trying to laugh it off, but the hairs on my arms wouldn't settle. After my shift, I decided to check the security footage. I'd never really bothered before. Who would want to break into a place like this? But as I scrolled through the recordings, something caught my eye. Around 2:30 a.m., the camera in the storage room flickered. For a split second, I saw movement, a shadow slipping between the shelves. I rewound, played it again, but it was gone. Just a glitch, I told myself. Still, I couldn't shake the image. The next night, I paid closer attention. I made sure every door was locked, every aisle was neat. But as the hours dragged on, that uneasy feeling crept back in. At 3:12 a.m., I heard it again, a soft dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. I gripped the flashlight and walked the aisles, calling out, "If someone's here, you need to leave. I'm calling the cops." No answer. I checked every corner, every shelf. Nothing. When my shift ended, I went straight to the security office. My hands shook as I fast-forwarded through the footage. At first, everything looked normal. Then, at exactly 3:12, the camera in aisle 3 glitched. The screen went fuzzy, then cleared. That's when I saw it, a figure, tall and thin, standing perfectly still at the end of the aisle. They wore a dark hoodie, face hidden in shadow. I watched as they slowly turned their head, as if looking straight into the camera. My breath caught in my throat. The figure didn't move for nearly a minute. Then, as if deciding something, they stepped out of frame, switched to the next camera, following their path. They moved with an eerie calm, gliding past the coolers, pausing at the counter where I'd been just minutes before. I watched myself on the screen, oblivious, counting bills while the figure stood just out of sight. My skin crawled. I called my manager, showed him the footage, He was skeptical at first, but when he saw the figure, his face went pale. He called the police, but by the time they arrived, there was no sign of forced entry, nothing missing, no footprints. They said it was probably a prank, maybe a homeless person looking for shelter. But I knew better. The way that figure moved, the way they watched me, it didn't feel human. After that, I started dreading my shifts. Every night I'd check the cameras, double-check the locks, but the sense of being watched never left. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of movement in the corner of my eye, or hear a whisper of footsteps behind me. But whenever I turned, there was nothing there. The last time I checked the footage, I saw something I'll never forget. As I was leaving at dawn, the camera caught the figure standing in the shadows by the dumpster, watching me walk to my car. They raised a hand, almost like a wave, before melting into the darkness. I quit the next day. Now every time I pass that store, I can't help but wonder if the night shift is still being watched, if the cameras are still catching things no one wants to see. It's unsettling enough to realize you're not alone in a place you thought was safe, even more so when the evidence is right there on camera. But as disturbing as it is to be watched at work, nothing compares to what some people discover in the place they presuppose to feel safest of all. If you thought those stories were terrifying, wait until you see what was caught on camera in the next one. We moved into the apartment at the end of summer, thinking we'd finally found a place that felt like home. It was a little cramped, but the rent was good, and the building was quiet, almost too quiet. My wife Emily and I joked about the creaky floors and the way the pipes groaned at night. Our daughter Lily was just happy to have her own room. For the first few weeks, everything seemed normal. But then, little things started to go missing. A box of cereal, a pair of socks, Emily's favorite mug. At first, we blamed each other, laughing it off as moving brain. But the laughter faded when we started finding things in places we'd never put them. Lily's toys lined up in perfect rows under the couch, the remote control in the freezer, a half-eaten sandwich on the bathroom sink. One night I woke up to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Not the heavy, familiar tread of Emily or the light patter of Lily, but something slower, almost dragging. I lay there, holding my breath, listening as the footsteps stopped right outside our bedroom door. I waited for the handle to turn, for the door to creak open, but nothing happened. The next morning, Emily asked if I'd been up during the night. When I told her what I'd heard, she went pale. She'd heard it too. That's when we decided to set up cameras. Nothing fancy, just a couple of cheap motion-activated ones we ordered online. We put one in the hallway, one in the kitchen, and one in Lily's room, just in case. I told myself it was just to catch a raccoon, or maybe a neighbor's kid sneaking in. But deep down, I was afraid of what we might actually find. The first few nights, the cameras picked up nothing but us, shuffling to the bathroom, getting water, checking on Lily. But on the fourth night, I woke up to a notification on my phone. Motion detected. Kitchen. My heart pounded as I opened the app. The footage was grainy, the kitchen bathed in the blue glow of the nightlight. For a moment, nothing moved. Then from the far corner, a shadow emerged. It was a person, thin, hunched, moving with a strange, jerky gait. They crept along the wall, pausing to open the fridge, rifling through the shelves with long, bony fingers. I watched, frozen, as the figure pulled out a carton of milk, took a swig, and set it back. Right where we'd found it the morning before, half empty. The figure turned, and for a split second, the camera caught their face. It was gaunt, eyes sunken and wild, hair hanging in greasy clumps. They looked straight into the lens, lips curling into a twisted smile. Then, just as quickly, they slipped out of frame, vanishing into the shadows. I woke Emily, my hands shaking. We watched the footage together, both of us too stunned to speak. We called the police, who searched the apartment from top to bottom. They found nothing, no signs of forced entry, no hidden doors, no one hiding in the closets or under the beds. They told us it was probably a glitch, maybe a neighbor caught on camera by mistake, but we knew better. The next night we barely slept. Every creak, every whisper of wind outside made us jump. At 2:41 a.m., another notification. Motion detected. Lily's room. I opened the app, dreading what I might see. The footage showed Lily sleeping, her small form curled under the blankets. In the corner, the closet door slowly creaked open. The same figure emerged, crawling on all fours, moving with an unnatural, spider-like grace. They hovered over Lily, watching her sleep, then retreated back into the closet, closing the door behind them. We packed our bags that morning and left, leaving everything behind. We never went back. Sometimes I still check the camera feeds, even though the app says the devices are offline. Every so often, I get a notification motion detected, even though the apartment is supposed to be empty. I don't open them anymore. I don't want to know what's still living there, hiding just out of sight, waiting for the next family to move in. And I could help but wonder how long it had been watching us before we ever noticed. It's easy to believe that cameras will keep us safe, that if anything truly terrifying happened, we'd see it coming. But these stories prove that sometimes the scariest things are the ones we only notice after the fact. When we finally dare to look back at the footage and realize we were never really alone. Maybe it's a stranger slipping through the shadows of your home, or a figure lurking just out of sight at work, or something far worse hiding in the places you trust most. The truth is, we never really know what's happening when we're not looking. So if you've ever caught something strange on your own security camera, I want to hear about it. Share your stories in the comments, because sometimes the only thing more terrifying than what you see is what you might have missed. And next time you check your footage, remember these stories. You never know what's waiting to be found, just beyond the edge of the frame.